After the collapse of the Old Kingdom, Egypt entered a turbulent phase which usually referred to as the First Intermediate Period. The reunification of the country with the so-called Middle Kingdom came with the kings of Thebes, today's Luxor, around 2100 BC. As a consequence, Thebes became the most important city, and its main god, Amun, united with Ra, became the most important god of Egypt, Amun-Ra. In the Middle Kingdom, and even more later in the New Kingdom, the religious structures and associated priesthood progressively acquired power, and so many temples were constructed and enlarged in the course of the centuries. The most important one is certainly the Temple of Amun at Karnak. Many pharaohs made additions to Karnak, the most famous perhaps being the hypostyle room added by Ramses II around 1250 BC. The axis of the temple runs along the solstitial line with winter sunrise with summer sunset. The front is towards the Nile and sunset. However, the western horizon is occupied by the Theban hills, so that the sun sets before filtering along the axis. The horizon is instead flat to the southeast, and therefore the temple is definitely aligned to the winter solstice sunrise. The spectacle of the rising sun penetrating the temple can still be enjoyed today. An inscription in the temple reads, "We applaud your beautiful face, you biggest of all gods, Amun-Ra." And indeed we can understand why at midwinter dawn once a year. But why was such an important temple oriented to the rising sun at midwinter? Probably the reason is in the structure of the Egyptian calendar. In fact, the Egyptian calendar was made up of 3 seasons of 120 days each: Aket, inundation; Peret, growth; Shemu, harvest, plus 5 added days, for a total of 365 days, without any correction, such as leap years. Of course, the Egyptians knew that their calendar was too short to take into account the length of the tropical year, which is a bit less of 365 days and 1/4. To fix ideas, we shall ignore here this small difference, and then we can say that the Egyptian calendar drifts of 1 solar day each 4 years, making a complete turnaround in 4 times 365 means 1460 years. The Egyptian calendar started with the summer solstice and the heliacal rising of Sirius around the half of the 27th century BC. So, in the years around the foundation of Karnak, which occurred around the start of the 20th century BC, he completed 1/2 of his wandering. Therefore, New Year's Day coincided with the winter solstice, and this occasion was celebrated in the project of the Karnak temple. Another wonderful example of temple orientation related to the sun and to the calendar is at Abu Simbel, where, around 1250 BC, Ramses II built 2 temples excavated in the rock near the bank of the Nile. Today they are reconstructed in an elevated position due to the formation of the artificial lake of the Aswan Dome. The facade of the main temple houses 4 gigantic statues of the pharaoh. The interior is organized along a series of halls aligned with one another and decorated with the heroic life of the king. The chapel at the end contains 4 seated statues representing gods: Ptah, Amun-Ra, Ramses II, who of course considered himself as a living god, and Ra or Akti. On February the 20th and October 22 of every year, and for a few days before and after, the sun rises in alignment with the axis of the temple. The light rays pass along the axis and reach the chapel at the end of the building. The sun carefully avoids Ptah, a chthonic god related to the underworld, but illuminates Amun-Ra, then Ramses II, and in the end also Ra-Horakhti, the personification of the solar disk. This spectacular hierophany implies an architectural constraint that conditioned the entire planning of the Abu Simbel main temple right from the onset. Again, as in Karnak, the origin is calendrical. These two dates, in fact, marked the beginning of the two seasons Shemu and Peret, at the time around 2700 BC, when the Egyptian calendar was devised. When Ramesses II accessed to the throne, 1460 years were elapsed, so that he could celebrate himself as the king under which the calendar realigned with the solar year.